Okay, so this is what I've been working on. This is sort of the end result of what I think you all will be able to get on your courses. I think if you're viewing this in high definition, hopefully the resolution will show well, and you'll be able to see some of the detail that I'm trying to show. I promise it looks better in person, I'm sure, than a recording. Ultimately, what I'm shooting for is something to improve over the main materials that CourseForge makes. And essentially, I'm going to hopefully inject this into the CourseForge sort of programming so that we're going to be able to do this without you having to futz around. And it's essentially going to be in the same layers library format that you currently have. And I think you've seen that picture that I showed in this forum that gives you an idea of how that's going to look. And you're basically going to have these same inputs, but they're just going to be over here in your layers library paneling. So let me show you kind of how this builds. Essentially, when we have a texture provided to us by CourseForge, we don't have so many inputs. And essentially, we're given, we can do some things, and this is in the overlay manner. And by overlay, I mean I'm using a satellite image to provide my base color. And then we have something to put over top of that. And you can put a color texture over that, or you can put a, I kind of call a detail texture, a black and white texture over top of that. And then you have two normals. And so this is kind of the result we're getting. And some people complain that, oh, I like the overlay method. Oh, I like the traditional method. Well, the reason people like traditional method is because up close, the detail looks great. And in this case, it doesn't because I'm using overlay method. And I'm really just, I have one thing to tile over, the entire terrain here, or in this case, the fairway mesh. So it looks great from above. I've put some scratches in Photoshop. I've painted in Photoshop, I've painted this to be varying colors between the left and the right. And I've painted some stuff up here by the green to look a little different as well. But as we come up close, we're lacking sort of that nice detail and really what a course looks like to some degree up close. And the problem is just the method that it's built. So I've given us a lot of power here, and I'm going to show you what happens. Basically, I'm giving us an additional texture, which is a diffuse color texture and then a detail texture. But beyond that, there's a beauty in it. If these things just tiled out all the way across, you would start to see this tiling effect from far away. And so hopefully you can see that. So up above here, since I've changed my blend distance, and ultimately I'll kind of show you how this works. Since I've changed the blend distance from far away, you start to see tiling. And a lot of these newer textures provided by companies or in Substance Designer are meant to tile over 2 to 4 meters. And that's where they can really take effect and benefit from the resolution. Now, when we're up close, we don't really see the tiling as much, but depending on the choices you've made, you might be able to see some of that off in the distance. But what I've been able to do is create a blend with this. So this is blending over top of the satellite. But beyond that, I can control the distance that it's blending. So watch this. I'm going to bring it up close to us. And then I'm going to push the fall off to make a sharp edge. So what I'm doing is, now you can really see what's happening. And I'm just exaggerating so you can tell. This is satellite, typical overlay method. And then this up close here would be our typical what I call like traditional method. Well, I'm now merging the two, but trying to do it seamlessly. So now let's push the blend distance out, and let's take this fall off. It's kind of like a blur, and extend it out. We don't want it to go all the way across, but we want it to just kind of push out just a little bit. See this now? So then now if you have something that's highly tiling and really distracting to somebody's view, you've cut it off here. And now the distance is just overlay. And then I've also given you a color control so that that distance color, it may not match initially. And so now we can just sort of just do a value control on it, which is light dark, and just make it blend seamlessly. So now when you're up far away, you've got the overlay method. Everything looks great. And then as you come in close, like, wow. Like look at some of this detail now that's just popping out. And I'm going to push that blend distance out a little bit. I don't want it that close to the camera. So, I mean, now we've got the beauty of the two. We've got the detail that we want, And now I've separated things so you can dial down your diffuse opacity so you can just see the detail, or you can dial down your detail opacity. You know, you've got a lot to play with, and so this is just meant for a lot of user control, but allowing some of the underneath to show through, which I think is nice here. And then you've got the same control with the normals, and I'm not going to go way into that, but up above here, you may want your far normal. Is kind of when you start pushing the far normal, you can start to see that. Like that would be more of like a rough or something like that. But I'm going to bring that down because this is fairway and it's not really going to show that much. But you maybe want it to highlight some bumps in here. And then you have sort of the same thing with the blending control with the normal in terms of the distance you want that showing up. But now you can see some of that far normal starting to show up out here. You can push the distance of that away a little bit, or you can bring it close to you. So you have the same sort of controls separately as you did with the color as well. And so really this is going to allow us to get to something highly detailed. And then lastly, I decided to add some mow lines on top of this. So in case you weren't great at putting your mow line into your texture, or you wanted to tile your texture obviously at a different level than your mow line, no longer a problem. And the mow lines just have an opacity control. This you can generate from my DPR texture generator. So I'm even providing that for you, where you can, this is, you can create rotations with that. You can also control the number of mow lines that you have. But ultimately, you also have some tiling control back here in Unity. So you don't have to worry so much about how many lines you put in, because you'll also still have some control to bump that up or down within Unity itself. And then, like I said, you've got an opacity control, so we can fade that out. And what I've done with the mow lines is it's on top of everything else. So you can still, the blend controls won't impact the mow lines, so you can still see it far away, because I think that's what your eye would do, or the camera would do, is that you could still see the mow lines. And then so up close, like now we have all this just merging together. And I just think when you do things kind of light touches and kind of just allow things to merge together like this versus be forced into just one or two textures to control everything, the end result is just something super realistic that we haven't been able to get before. You also finally have a color control of the entire thing. So if I zoom back here and say, oh, that's a little too green for my liking, you would have some ability to obviously alter that. This is more like a bluish hued course in some way. And so then you can change the overall coloring with it. I know it looks a little complicated initially, but trust me, you could get something better than you've ever been able to get just because we've allowed some of these parameters. Like I said, I've got this done. Unfortunately, my next step is really to just have it integrated into the layers library. If you were good enough, you could figure out how to do this. And lastly, I guess that one thing I want to tell you, it's all UV free. So in the end, you don't have to take anything into Blender to get this result. You can just dunk this right on top of, let me go put it on the green just to show you that. But you could just come in here and just dunk it right on top of that. And then it's going to change your result there. Now, like I said, I'll get this blend into CourseForge, so then it's all sort of automatic is my hope there. All right, enjoy.